The unit circle is going to be one of the most used things that you'll be using throughout the semester. It's actually going to be something that you might not write down all the time, but you're going to be thinking it. So here's what's going on. We have these two triangles. We have the 30, 60, 90 triangle. So this is 30, this is 60, and we've got the 90, of course. And if you remember, we have a 1, square root of 3, and a 2. What we need to do is we need to change this now so that we have the exact same triangle, but we have it a little bit shrunken so that this is a 1. So we have the 30 here and the 60 here. And I need that to be a 1. And in order to get that to be a 1, that means I need to take the 2 and divide it by 2. So that gives me the 1. And if I'm going to do that, then I need to divide all the other ones by 2. So this one's actually going to be a 1/2, and this one's going to be a root 3 over 2. So why would we do that? Well, what's happening is we've got this circle, and we call it the unit circle. And the reason we call it the unit circle is because the radius of the unit circle is 1. So no matter where we are on the unit circle, we've got this from the center to the edge as a 1. And so what happens is if we put this triangle on the unit circle, now I have this triangle right here, and I have to have this side be a 1 in order for it to fit. And so then that means the other sides then would be that 1/2 and the square root of 3 over 2. And then what happens is this triangle then is going to intersect the circle right here at this point. And so if I want to figure out the coordinates of that point, well, the x value, since I'm going from the center to the edge, the x value is going to be the side of the circle because that follows straight down. So the x value then is going to be root 3 over 2, and the y value is going to be 1/2. And then I can take, that's the 30 degrees. So this one intersects at 30 degrees. I can put in the 60-degree one. And that one is going to, this is 1 still, and then we have the short side, 1/2, and the long side, root 3 over 2. And so then if I look at the x value, it's 1/2, and the y value is root 3 over 2. Okay, let's go to a new page, and let's make that a little bit more clear. So we've got this big unit circle. Okay, I put on the 30 degrees, I measure out 30 degrees, and it hits the unit circle right there. And I'm trying to figure out what is this coordinate right here? What's the x and y value? And if I drop it straight down, this is my 30 degrees. And so 30 degrees, if this has to be a 1, then this side is 1/2, and this side is root 3 over 2. And so if I want to figure out the x value of this point, it's going to be this distance right here that stops then at that vertical angle there, or that vertical line. And so the x value is root 3 over 2. And the y value then is going to be where this point hits up there, which is going to be this height of the triangle, which is 1/2. If I go at 60 degrees, let's do that in another color maybe. So if I go at 60 degrees, I've got my 60 here and my 30 up here. And so this is 1 still. The side with the 30 is root 3 over 2, and the side with the 60 is 1/2. And so then the point where it intersects, if I look at it, the x value now is this distance, this little distance is 1/2, and the y value is root 3 over 2. Okay, so when we look at these, you're going to see that I have a point here and a point here. They have the exact same numbers, just switched around. And so what I do is I'll remember that I have 1/2 and root 3 over 2. And my job then, if I'm looking at 30 degrees or I'm looking at 60 degrees, my job is to figure out, the x value, is it going to be bigger or is it going to be smaller? See, root 3 over 2 is a bigger number than 1/2. If you think about root 3, it's bigger than 1 because 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. I'm looking at 3, right? The square root of 3. And so the square root of 3 has to be bigger than 1 but smaller than 2. The point is, though, it's bigger than 1, and so it's bigger than this 1/2. So root 3 over 2 is always the long side. So if I'm at 30 degrees, it's this short triangle, but it's long on the x-axis, so x is long, the y is short. If I'm looking at the 60 degrees, the x is short, the y is long. Now, what happens is, remember, we have these reference angles, and so I can go around the entire triangle, and I can say, oh, here's another 30. So then that means the x value is long, that's negative root 3 over 2. The y value is short, and that's a positive 1/2 because I'm in this quadrant. And then I've got another 30, so I'm at, 210? And so then the x value is long, negative root 3 over 2 because I'm in this quadrant. The y value is short, negative 1/2. And I'm always getting the negatives because I'm just looking at what quadrant I am and whether x or y is positive. I'm over here at, what is this, 330. And another reference angle of 30. And my x value is long, that's positive root 3 over 2. My y value is short, negative 1/2. I can go with the reference angles of 60. Okay, so I've got 120 here. My x value is short, negative 1/2. My y value is long, root 3 over 2. Can go over here to this one. And I've got an x value of negative 1/2, a y value of negative root 3 over 2. And then I have this one, 300, and my x value is short, 1/2, and my y value is long, negative root 3 over 2. So I've just covered quite a few of the angles. I've got all my reference angles of 30 and 60, 60 and 30, 30 and 60, 60 and 30. Now that's not only what we have on these, because we also have other angles. If you remember, our other triangle that we looked at was our 45, 45, 90 triangle. Now 45, 45, 90, we said that was 1, 1, and the square root of 2. But we're going to have to change that now. I can't have the square root of 2. I need this to be a 1. So then what we're doing is we're saying, well, to get that to be a 1, I have to divide by the square root of 2. So that means I need to divide by the square root of 2 and divide by the square root of 2. And I need to rationalize in order to have this be legit. So we have the square root of 2 over 2. That's right, I said legit. So we've got the square root of 2 over 2 and the square root of 2 over 2. So now if I put that on the unit circle, I've got 45 degrees right here. This is 1. This is root 2 over 2, and this is root 2 over 2. So then I've got the x value of root 2 over 2, and I've got the y value of root 2 over 2. For the same reasons, my x value matches up here, my y value matches up here. And then I've got all those reference angles as I go around at 45-degree references, and they're all going to be root 2 over 2, only some of them are going to have to be negative, and some of them will have to be positive. It all just depends on where we are. And so these are the 45 reference angles. And so now what we have is we have three numbers we have to remember. We have to remember the root 2 over 2 from the 45s. Those are nice because they're both, x and y are both root 2 over 2. And then we have the root 3 over 2 and the 1/2 from the 30 and the 60. Now, there's only one thing that's missing. And that thing that's missing is right on the axes. If I'm right here on the x-axis, the x value is all the way across. That would be the radius is 1 and the y value is 0 because I'm on the x-axis. Over here on this side, we would have negative 1 and 0. If we look on the y-axis, x is 0 and the y value is 1, whereas around the negative y-axis, we've got x is 0, y is negative 1. So that's a unit circle. If we want to look at the big picture of it, we've got our big circle, and then we have our 0, no, that was a lie. We have our 1, 0, we have our 0, 1, we have our negative 1, 0, and we have our 0, negative 1. Then we've got our 30s, right? The x is long, so we've got root 3 over 2 and 1/2. Over here we have this 150, that would be negative root 3 over 2 and 1/2. Okay, then we have 210, that's negative for both of them. The x is long and the y is short. And then we have our 330, which the x is long and the y is short. Then we have our 45, which is just root 2 over 2. And this one is negative root 2 over 2 and a positive root 2 over 2. And here we have both of them being negative. Remember, you already know all of these angles because this is what you had to do for your memorization before. And then we have our 60s. Do those in red. And that's where the x is short and the y is long. But it's all the same number, 1/2 and root 3 over 2. It's just a matter of figuring out positives and negatives. And so this is the full thing. This is something you want to practice because you're going to need this for our next topic. And so you need to know where they are and whether they're positive or negative. Is it a long x, a short x, or is it the root 2 over 2 that we always have? So we have 1/2 and negative root 3 over 2. And this is a full unit circle. So this is something that you want to practice over and over again or watch several times. All right, good luck.